Okay, let's just jump right in. We all like to think we're pretty logical, you know? That we can look at a situation and make a smart call. But what happens when that situation involves numbers and statistics? Well, it turns out our brains have this little feature, a kind of bug, that makes us surprisingly bad at thinking intuitively about all that stuff.
So let me just ask you, straight up, do you think you have a good gut feeling for stats? Just take a second and think about it. If you're like most of us, you probably think, yeah, I'm pretty decent. But the actual evidence, oh man, it tells a completely different and way more interesting story.
Now, what's incredible about this quote isn't just what it says, but who said it. This is not some student confessing they're confused. This is Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner, talking about himself and his legendary colleague Amos Tversky. Even they realized their own expert intuition was, well, kind of broken.
And it wasn't just them. They discovered that pretty much everyone, even seasoned researchers and statisticians, were making these same mistakes. They were way too quick to believe results that came from just a tiny little bit of data. So this isn't about not being smart enough. It's about how the human mind is fundamentally wired. So what is going on inside our heads?
To really get this, we need to meet the two main characters that are basically running the show in your mind. Kahneman gives them simple names, System 1 and System 2. And believe me, they are the key players in the story of how you think.
So let's break them down. System 1, that's your fast, automatic gut-feeling brain. It works with almost zero effort. You know, like when you instantly recognize a friend's face or know the answer to 2 plus 2. Then you've got System 2. That's your slow, deliberate, analytical mind. It's the one you have to consciously turn on to solve a hard math problem or focus on one person's voice in a super loud room. It takes real work.
Okay, let's actually feel this for a second. Try this. Look at the left column and just say if the word is in uppercase or lowercase. Simple, right? Now, try the right column. It's way harder, isn't it? You can feel that little hiccup in your brain? That's the battle. Your automatic System 1 is just screaming the word at you, while your effortful System 2 is trying to follow the rule and name the case. That little moment of friction, that's them fighting it out.
Honestly, System 1 is the hero of our day-to-day lives. It's an amazing machine for generating impressions, feelings, and quick judgments. Its absolute specialty is taking any little scraps of information it can find and bam, instantly weaving them into a nice, neat, coherent story. But here's the catch. That's also its greatest flaw. It jumps to conclusions. And statistics? Well, statistics is all about slowing down, and that's just not something System 1 is built for.
All right, so let's see how this plays out in a classic statistical trap. This is where System 1's love for a good story leads us totally off the rails into something Kahneman calls a belief in the law of small numbers. Just read this quick description. I bet an image of a guy named Steve just popped right into your head, right? Your System 1 is already kicking into high gear, matching this little sketch to a stereotype it already knows. You kind of feel like you know this guy.
So, based on that little story, what's your gut say? Is Steve more likely to be a librarian, or is he a farmer? Go with your first instinct. Almost everyone says librarian. Come on, the description is a perfect match for that stereotype. But that's just your System 1 talking, and it's missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
And here is that huge piece of the puzzle. The reality is, in the United States, there are more than 20 male farmers for every one male librarian. This number is the statistical base rate. It's how common something actually is. And it's overwhelmingly in favor of Steve being a farmer. Because there are just so many more farmers out there, it's way more probable that you'll find meek and tidy souls driving tractors than you will shelving books.
And this is the whole point. Our intuitive System 1 doesn't give a hoot about base rates. It's obsessed with resemblance. It saw a description that looked like its idea of a librarian and just leaped to that conclusion, completely ignoring the cold, hard statistical facts. This is a predictable, systematic error our brains make all the time.
So this mental shortcut, taking a tiny sample, in this case, a single personality sketch, and drawing a big conclusion from it, has a technical name. Statisticians call it sampling error. It's the gap that always exists between what a small sample seems to tell you and what the actual reality of the whole population is. And our intuition creates this error constantly. Okay, so are we just doomed? Is our brain hopelessly flawed? Not at all. Remember, we have System 2. We just have to know when to wake it up and give it the right set of tools for the job. So let's look at how we can actually fight back against these gut feelings.
So, tool number 1, the big one, is simple. Use a bigger sample. This is the whole idea behind the law of large numbers.
The more data points you have, the less that random luck plays a role, and the closer your sample is going to get to the real truth. It's super powerful, even if it's sometimes expensive or time-consuming. Let's see this with a concept called the standard error. You can just think of it as a number that tells you how much you can trust your sample's result. A high number means, this could be way off. A low number means, this is probably pretty close to the truth. So with a small sample of, say, 25 people, we get a standard error of 2.0. Now watch what happens when we get more data.
Look at that. If we just quadruple our sample size up to 100 people, the math is clear. Our standard error gets sliced in half, all the way down to 1.0. That's a massive improvement in how precise our estimate is. It's pure math showing that more data equals more confidence.
But what if you can't just get more data? Well, you can get smarter about the data you do get. There's a brilliant technique called stratified sampling. Basically, you first chop up the whole population into important subgroups, or strata. Then you make sure you take a random sample from inside each of those groups. This makes sure you don't accidentally ignore an important slice of the pie.
The absolute best way to think about this is like you're tasting a really chunky soup. You wouldn't just sip a spoonful of the clear broth and say, okay, I know what this whole soup tastes like. Of course not. You dig around to make sure your spoon gets a piece of the carrot, a bit of the chicken, a noodle. Stratified sampling is just making sure your data spoonful gets a little bit of everything important from the population's soup. So, let's wrap all this up. We've got this fast, intuitive System 1 that tells amazing stories, and we have a slow, analytical System 2 that can actually do the math. The real trick is learning which one to trust and when.
The great psychologist Herbert Simon had this genius insight. He said that what we call expert intuition is really just recognition. A master chess player sees a good move, or an experienced firefighter just feels a building is about to collapse because they have seen the patterns underneath that situation thousands of times before. Their System 1 has been trained through massive experience.
But, and this is the most important part, situations involving statistics and probability are often full of randomness. And, by definition, randomness doesn't have reliable patterns to recognize. This is the exact moment our expert intuition completely fails us. It's the red flag that tells you, hold on, don't trust your gut on this one. It's time to slow down and deliberately fire up your analytical System 2.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What's a common fact or stereotype you believe that might just be your own version of the Steve the Librarian story? A really compelling idea that's actually built on a tiny, biased little sample. Once you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere.